The fire broke out around 4 o'clock this afternoon at Sydenham House, a Grade 1 listed Elizabethan manor home near Chillerton, and quickly spread through the property. 98 firefighters from towns across Devon and Cornwall fought the flames, using water pumped from a nearby river and a lake.
It's a very complex operation because of the nature of the building. Being Grade 1 listed Elizabethan, it's very large, very rambling, lots of hidden voids, rapid fire spread, and with it being heavily wooden inside, it's very unsafe, so we've been unable to work inside for any great length of time.
How far has the firefighting operation progressed now?
It's progressed fairly well. We're into about the 4th hour of operations now. We'll be here for some considerable time yet. We've been operating in what we call defensive mode, from the outside, making sure firefighters aren't put at risk.
Austin Newport were appointed by the owner in November of 2012 to oversee the project through to completion.
We were appointed because we specialise in the fire damaged buildings and especially Grade 1 listed buildings.
Our remit includes the appointment of the architect, structural engineer, mechanical and electrical consultants, and of course management and appointment of all specialist subcontractors, all of whom are appointed through a very rigid and controlled tender process. Through efficient programming and tight site control, we were able to recover and stabilise the building very quickly, so reducing the impact of further weather damage. The LBC process and application is being managed by a conservation architect specialising in the restoration of historic buildings. In parallel, the architect is developing the construction details for the renovation of the property.
When we started demolishing the chimney, we soon realised that a lot of the stones from the chimney were from an older building, probably a medieval building. Whether they've been recycled on site or whether they've come from elsewhere, we don't know. But some of them merlons and embrasures, which is off a battlement sort of detail, and some of the other ones were transoms and mullions from another part of the building, but they've actually made them up to incorporate them into the chimney.
We now have the roofing contractor on site who's felting, battening and slating. The next 6 months we've got electricians on site, and we've also got mechanical engineers on site, so we're going to start on the internal work. The roof will be ongoing, and that's going to be ongoing through till the end of August this year. Internally we'll get all the first fix electrical and mechanical completed, then we start reinstalling the timber panelling. We're really pleased with progress, and we are on budget, and we're looking forward to returning the building back to its former glory. We've finished all the timber work, repairs on the roof. We've felted and battened 100% of the roof, and we've completed all the slating, all the lead work on the 2 phases, and we've got 1 phase left.
We've also managed to get rid of a huge excrescence on the building, which was the old boiler house. That dated back to the time when we had an oil-fired boiler. A couple of years ago, before the fire, we'd put in a biomass heating system in a barn, which came across through a regional heating main to the house. In a sense, we've been able to make the old boiler house redundant and got rid of this rather ugly building.
We then were working inside. We started plasterboarding on the top floor, which then we will get the plasterers in to start skimming on all floors. First fix mechanical and electrical is near enough completed, and we're in the process now of choosing the light fittings that need to go in as a replacement.
I think we've been immensely reassured by the professionals who've helped us with the project. Everyone from the insurers, surprisingly the loss adjusters, who can be have a notorious reputation, but they've been very helpful. The project managers, Austin Newport, the architect, who's done a brilliant job. Everyone involved, the civil engineer or building engineer, electrics contractors, the carpenters, the roofers, and now, fortunately, the plasterers are starting, and we're really beginning to see the house take shape.
Behind us you'll see 3 dormer windows. They have been a bit of a process to go through with English Heritage and the Conservation Officer, but we finally got there. We still have other issues, Green Court Gable with English Heritage and the Conservation Officer, but other than that, now everything is in place and we're progressing very, very well.
We now are beginning to see the house reformed, and as you can see from the structure around me today, the quality of the work is really quite superb, and we're thrilled.
We're in March at the moment. Since Christmas we've completed the decorations on the top floor. The sanitary ware is being installed as we speak. The lower floors we're installing the new panelling and reinstating the existing panelling. Externally, the scaffolding has been taken down to the rear of the property and we're completing the point into the lower areas. And we've got some very, very good tradesmen involved in it. The decorators are exceptional. The new panelling is very, very good, quality-wise and finish-wise.
The first thing I did after coming to see the building was to sit down with the plans and work through the layouts and review the layouts to review the way the client wants to live in the house. So I went through the plans. We took the opportunity to present to Graham and Hilary a few options on things they might want to consider. And then, with those plans in hand and with good knowledge of the house, based on working on the plans, we were able to sit down with them and talk about opportunities for changing and how, also to understand how they were living in the house before, which is the most important thing when you're trying to put somebody's house back. The building has been here for 400 years, and we think that we've put the building onto a sound footing for the next 400 years.
I'm in charge of restoring, conserving and replacing the historic panelling on the building and some of the other decorative work. Before we start moving anything, everything's photographed and notated. So we use an iPad to go round, so we can draw directly on to add notes and labelling everything. Everything's then got a physical label put on it, so every panel and element of the panelling is labelled. And that's absolutely essential to make sure that you haven't got a 5,000 piece jigsaw puzzle of brown wood,
We were involved with this project from February 2012 was our first site visit, or my first site visit, which was to come down and assess the situation with this particular ceiling on the East Bay, with its enriched Jacobean style, was being propped with bits and pieces of timber, which were quite crudely done after the fire to prevent it falling. Since then, we've gone through various meetings with English Heritage, the local conservation officers, we've had to cut the ceiling down, cut all the enrichments down. They've been cleaned. We've made profiles of the original cornice. We mapped every enrichment. There's about 87 enrichments to go back up on the ceiling. Once they've been cleaned, as they have been, they're all going to go now back into their original place.
The panelling had to be dried out, and that has to be done very slowly under controlled conditions. So we have dehumidifiers, and we monitor the environment the panelling's stored in. And it's dried out over a period of about 2 or 3 months, and the humidity is gradually taken down. If you don't do that, things warp and split, and it causes a huge amount more damage. We've looked at the medieval techniques that we used originally, which mainly consist of huge T-shaped iron nails that are sort of driven into the walls with great force. We've got to be a bit careful how far we go down that route, because the panelling is quite frail at this stage. But we have used as many of the original fixings as we can. In other areas where we've got electrics or services running behind the panelling, we've used a more conventional modern technique with grounds and stainless steel fixings.
When we came back, both ceilings, as you can see them, had their new timber subframes. We've fixed oak laths, riven oak laths to them. It's had a coat of 2.5 to 1 sand, putty and hair, plenty of hair added to it. As a pricking up coat, that's the initial carbonation. Then we've gone through the floating coats, as you can see in here. After it's had its floating coats, we've then underneath here we've fixed a subframe of oak that have then since been lathed, and these are the pricking up coats going onto the cornice.
Probably the most fun thing for us isn't actually a piece of panelling, it's the overmantel in the hall, which was modelled in cob and plaster. So it's basically mud, goat hair with a thin layer of lime plaster on top. And that was completely soaked and in about 200 pieces by the time we got it off the wall. And that's been completely rebuilt. We've taken the later layers of paint off to get down to the original paint layers. We've analysed the paint. We've made paints that match the original. So we've recreated the entire colour scheme and gilding scheme on that, which is, I'd say, a lot of fun for us. You know.
This is where we've had these enrichments cleaned. As you can see, they're in fairly poor condition. We've got about 70% of the originals going back up. 70 to 80% was what we're hoping for. The ones that are too badly damaged in the fire and the cleaning process, we've taken them, we've made one good, and then we've made 2 silicone moulds, as there are 2 different enrichments, one mainly with leaves, one mainly with fruits and berries. It's been an interesting project. The house won't have looked so good since the 17th century, I think, when it's finished. So far the rooms that are going back are beginning to look like some of their former glory. And we've had a good time down here. It's an absolutely beautiful site and a beautiful place to work, so it's a privilege to do it.
The client has moved back in now, so we're completed. We've got a few snagging items, minor snagging items, but that's it. It's done and dusted.
We're really pleased, and everyone has pulled together and done a superb job. There's always occasional difficulty with timing, particularly when you're using subcontractors, but that's the advantage of having a good project manager. And Paul Harvey of Austin Newport's done an excellent job.
Personally, I'm very happy with the overall results, and we've handed it back to the client, and it looks like we've never ever been here and there's never been a fire.
To see the house reappear, but slightly shinier and fresher and generally more attractive, is wonderful. And we could never believe that when it first started, but we're more than happy with the end result. In some ways it's as though we hadn't left. We've had to inevitably renew, to buy some new furniture, but we've also got a lot of our old familiar pieces back, all very well restored and looking better than ever. And it feels like the old house, but better.